You say when, we're on. Good evening. I'm Neal Moore, and on behalf of the Maumelle Lions Club, I welcome you to a candidate forum being brought to you virtually for the first time. I think as many of us, we would rather be together, but circumstances don't allow it, and so we'll try this way. Today, we'll hear from candidates for 3 positions on the Maumelle City Council and candidates for District 39 State Representative. A note to our candidates, you may leave the Zoom after your segment if you choose. We will also leave you as attendees if you want to continue watching via Zoom, or you can continue watching via Facebook if you do drop off. So, with that, a little bit of housekeeping. We have chosen to have the speakers appear in alphabetical order. So the first race we'll start with is Ward 1, Position 1. Each candidate will have up to 5 minutes for an opening statement, followed by questions to each, and then a response to each question, and each candidate will have 2 minutes for a closing remark. We do have a timekeeper, and if you just get out of hand, we'll just cut you off because we have that capability. So the candidates for Ward 1 position was Christine Gronwald and Mr. Steve Mosley. Mr. Mosley is the incumbent. First, let me introduce Christine Gronwald. Christine's 44, and she is Director of Development for the East Initiative Incorporated, a non-profit education organization offering education accelerated by service and technology. East has programs in 252 schools statewide with programs in 3 Maumelle schools. She's a graduate of the University of Arkansas at Fayetteville with a degree in mass communications and a minor in marketing. She completed her MBA through Capella University, and she also serves as chapter president for the Association of Fundraising Professionals Arkansas chapter. She lives in Country Club of Arkansas with her husband, Jason, and 2 daughters. Ms. Gronwald, we'll begin with you with your opening statement to last no more than 5 minutes.
All right. Good evening. My name is Christine Gronwald, and I am running for Maumelle City Council, as Neal mentioned. Ward 1, Position 1. Much of what Neal just went over, we're going to talk about even still in my intro. So thank you, first of all, to the Maumelle Lions Club and all of our moderators for putting this opportunity together for all of us to have an equal and balanced line of communication with our community. As Neal mentioned, in 2014, my husband and I made the decision to move to Maumelle. We were looking for a place to raise our family, to feel safe, somewhere to explore and enjoy the outdoors. We have 2 wonderful daughters, Zoe, age 13, and Gigi, age 11. They both attend Academics Plus charter schools. We are residents of the Country Club of Arkansas, as Neal mentioned. I am running for Maumelle City Council because I am confident that I can provide a fresh point of view and utilize my experience for the betterment of Maumelle. A native Arkansan, I did graduate from the U of A, Fayetteville, with a Bachelor of Arts in Mass Communications and a minor in marketing. I also hold a Master's of Business Administration. In my 20-year career, I've gained experience in business development, marketing, budget management, and nonprofit fundraising. Currently, I am the Director of Development at East, an organization that establishes unique environments in schools and provides powerful science and technology training to both students and educators. As president of a statewide professional organization called the Association of Fundraising Professionals, AFP, I have developed proven leadership skills. I serve on the Academics Plus Maumelle Charter School PTO, as well as the Maumelle Splash Pad Committee. We do need more diverse and a more balanced representation of the population of Maumelle on the council. We need someone with fresh ideas and a fresh approach. We need someone who will listen to the constituents. If elected, I will represent the voices of Ward 1 residents and work to ensure Maumelle continues to flourish. I appreciate your vote for Maumelle City Council, Ward 1.
All right. Thank you, Christine. Next, we have our incumbent, Mr. Steve Mosley. Steve is 68 years old. He's been a resident of Maumelle for 34 years. He's been married to his wife, Cheryl, for 43 years. He received a BS degree from Oklahoma State University with a double major in accounting and general business and a minor in economics. He spent 5 years with the well-known international accounting firm Ernst & Young And then for 38 years, he's had his own company, in the natural gas and commodities futures industry. He's owned his own company since 1988, and that's included natural gas marketing, futures trading, and a financial hedging timing advisor. He holds a Series 3 commodities license and a registered commodity trading advisor. He co-founded the residents advocacy group Maumelle Residents United in 2011. Mr. Mosley, you have 5 minutes for your opening statement. I think you're muted.
Is it 5 minutes or 2 minutes, Neal?
Up to 5 minutes.
Up to 5 minutes, and I think Ms. Gronwald probably limited hers to 2, and out of fairness, I'll do the same thing.
That's up to you.
Yeah, I've lived in Maumelle for 34 years. My wife and I moved here, I think, when Maumelle had maybe 2,000 residents at the most. We lived in a couple of houses here in Maumelle and raised our kids here, and they're all out on their own. They all graduated from major universities. And so my wife and I are trying to top off the retirement funds and do that sort of thing. So anyway, I wanted to mention why I originally ran for office back in 2012. Maumelle had been started by the development community back in the late 70s. And I've witnessed most of the growth here in Maumelle. And understandably, the city's been pretty much development oriented. They have a lot of times people that are interested in development have been on the city council and in the role of mayor. I finally, in the around 2010, 2011, I felt like the city was focusing way too much on the development aspects and was not listening to the residents. When you have a fast-growing community, a lot of times taxes end up being very high on the residents to finance things like parks and infrastructure and things like that. And we also began to have some severe traffic problems as a result of some decisions by the city council allowing development to occur over in the country club area. Actually, that was originally zoned industrial. So we began to have a lot of problems, growth-related problems. And so I started Maumelle Residents United to try to advocate on behalf of the average resident on traffic, high-density housing, water, zoning issues, ethics, taxes, and spending. And we actually tried to encourage a lot of just average residents to run for the council to try to increase a resident perspective on the city council. We could not find anybody to run in Ward 1 that year, and so I went ahead and ran. And I ran on a platform of no new taxes, conservative spending, residents' top priority, especially in developer situations. If there's a clash there, I'm going to come down the side of the residents. I advocated that we consider traffic better in planning, and also, I guess that was about it. But anyway, the idea was to try to shift the, we had a dial and it was heavily on the developer side, and I was wanting the city to pay more attention to the residents. And I think we've kind of moved the dial back toward the middle here the last 8 years. We have a new mayor, we've got a new city attorney, and I think we're moving in the right direction. We do have some challenges, and I'll mention those later on. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mosley. I'm going to ask questions of each of you. You'll have up to 2 minutes to respond. I'll ask the same question of each of you. And what you say may temper what I ask next, but right now I'm going to ask a fairly safe question that I would hope that you would have expected me to ask. What do you feel is the most pressing issue our city faces, and how would you propose that we face that issue, Ms. Gronwald?
Thank you, Neil. That's a great question. I feel pretty strongly that we can't put one issue in just a box. It won't fit in just a box. There are many different issues. And first and foremost, I would like for us to acknowledge that, just as my opponent said, the city is moving in the right direction. If we look at our finances, our revenue and expenses have been moderate, have been balanced over the past several years. We're doing okay there. Coming from a background in fundraising, we are very fiscally responsible in fundraising. We have to be. So with my experience in nonprofit organizations, moving forward, I would like for us to continue to be very fiscally responsible and fiscally conservative. As far as taxes, Mr. Mosley talked about taxes. I don't think anybody, and you'll hear me talk a little bit more about this later as well, I don't think anybody can say that there will not be any new taxes, whatever candidate. Nobody can tell the future. We don't know what the needs of tomorrow will bring. Speaking as a resident myself and having gone out and canvassed and talked to many of the residents in the Country Club of Arkansas and in Riverland in Ward 1, the issues that are facing our residents are things like the Country Club of Arkansas feels disconnected. They feel disconnected. They don't hear from my opponent. They don't feel heard. They don't feel communicated with. They don't feel like their interests are being represented on the council. They do feel disconnected, as I said, from the rest of the wards. So I would like to, number one, I would like to make sure that our residents feel communicated with and feel heard.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gronwald. Same question to you, Mr. Mosley. What is the most pressing issue you feel is facing our city, and how would you be a leader in that direction to face that?
Okay, yeah, I think there's about three things here. I think Ms. Gronwald hit on one or two. One of the big problems we have here in Maumelle is we don't have much revenue we get off of our sales tax. We do not have a good commercial tax base. One of the reasons for the third entrance interchange was to try to attract some commercial, and that was one of the selling points by the developer community for the interchange. Unfortunately, there hasn't really been any bites on that area. Of course, we've had the coronavirus and some things like that that have come into play, but that's something we've got to deal with. We're not like Sherwood, where we've got a lot of commercial. Let's see. One other thing we've got a real problem in that we've got a very high bond debt. We cannot go into debt anymore as far as major projects and things. Our bond debt the last 8 years went from about $10 million to about $40 million. And we're maxed out. I don't think bond people would allow us to float any more bonds here for a while. So one of the things we've got to do going forward is we've got to be very frugal. We've got to watch our spending. We've got to watch the hiring that we do at City Hall. We had a 1/2 cent sales tax as part of that interchange. And I think she's saying 30 seconds. I can't read it. There it is.
Yes.
And anyway, I've lost my train of thought, but I would like to address a couple of her points there. She talked about balanced budget. We've had a hard time keeping the budget balanced. There's a lot of people that want to get on the council and spend all of our reserves. We can't do that. As far as no new taxes, I hold firm on that. No new taxes. Okay. We've got more than enough.
All right.
Very, very humane.
We'll have more time.
Oh, we're done. Thanks.
Let me kind of, I want to, Ms. Gronwald and Mr. Mosley, both, you've had experience in marketing. You're both good communicators. So if I came to you and I said, when you sell Maumelle, what do you say, Ms. Gronwald?
That's a great question, Neal. And the same reason that brought my family to the Maumelle area, I say that, Maumelle has been voted twice by 2 different security system companies, number 5 and number 6, I believe, as the safest city in the entire state. So if that doesn't speak to why you should move here, I don't know what does. But in addition to that, We have an incredible sense of community. Our community center, all the outpouring of activities for kids, for adults, it's amazing. We have wonderful schools. We have amazing parks, walking trails, biking trails. It's just a good sense of community. And I'd love to see Maumelle grow, but I do want to hold on to that tight-knit sense of community.
Yeah, I try to tell people don't come here. But I'm not a politician, so it doesn't matter. Mr. Mosley, same question to you. What would you say when you sell Maumelle?
The first thing I sell it on is safety. We are a very safe community. This is a good community to raise a family, good community to retire in because it's safe. We have a good police force. They've always done a good job. We have very few complaints about our police force out here, and the fire department does the same thing. They're very good at emergency calls, and they also get the heck out there when you've got a fire problem. So, let's see, as far as Lake Willistine, that's a great selling point. I spend a lot of time there walking every evening. And one, I thought I'd mention, I got to throw out some kudos to our planning commission. We have probably the sharpest bunch of people on our planning commission that you could find anywhere. We've got engineers, we've got lawyers. These folks put a lot of thought into everything they do, and this has evolved. It's gotten really good. And also we've got a mayor council form of government. And what that does is create more interest in running for office because you don't have to tackle the whole city. That's one reason I've got an opponent this time. Ms. Gronwald probably looked and said, gee, all I got to do is go for a fourth of the town. And it's not that expensive to run for alderman. I think I did it the last time on $700. So it's a good form of government to have, and we've got some good people in place at the city that are running that government. Thought I'd just very quickly, I didn't have a chance to touch on respond to my opponent on the country club feels disconnected. I don't think that's the case. When you represent a ward, you represent the whole ward. And actually, in my time in office, I've probably devoted more time to the Country Club of Arkansas because there's a lot of things going on over there. There's a lot of growth and things like that. I've been paying attention. We've got a noise ordinance. I've been trying to apply it to the new commercial areas going in over there. The rest of the council doesn't agree with me, but I think it needs to apply to the commercial. And so I've been fighting that battle. I've also been trying to preserve the trees out there, keep landowners from just clear cutting trees like they have in the past. That sort of thing. So there's a lot of, I pay a lot of attention to Country Club. Thank you.
Let me go back to you, Mr. Mosley, on,
Sure.
Let's go back to taxes just so I don't ask the same order every time. I think one of the big, for those who pay attention in Maumelle, one of the big, and I think both of you probably brought it up, is our lack of revenue and sales taxes that due to limited retail and limited sales tax revenue from retail goods. The new interchange is supposed to be the new mecca for Maumelle, although it will not be Maumelle unless it's annexed, which at this time I'm not sure when or if that's going to happen. But where do you see us going to try to increase our revenue, including what can we do to be creative with the new interchange, perhaps with an eye on annexation, Mr. Mosley?
Yeah, the tax aspect is something we've tried to do there. I think the residents of this community have done everything they could do as far as making that third interchange commercial ready. We built a road out there, and that was before I got on the council. I don't know if I would have supported that road out there or not, but once we got it, we pretty much had to have an interchange because they're going to build a lot of new houses out there and cause more traffic. We've got that in there. The annexation situation is that we've got it annexed all the way to the third entrance. Now, there's some questions about whether that area beyond the third entrance has been annexed or not. and I don't know if I want to get into that tonight. The council approved an annexation for that area beyond there, but I don't think the developer has, or the landowner has signed that. So that's something that the mayor will need to work out, depending on what's best for Maumelle. If time goes, there's plenty of room out there. We could build a road along parallel to the I-40 for car dealerships, anything like that that gets going. But the ball is in the court of our community economic developer at City Hall, and with the developers who promised that there would be lots of things going in there. It's up to them. We do, I'm not going to go down there. Nobody needs to go down there and stand there and hold a sign up saying, come here. There's ways to do it. There's lots of ways to do economic development in Central Arkansas, and we're plugged in. I think the mayor's doing all he can.
Ms. Gronwald, same question to you, looking toward how do we build our revenue base, which was kind of one of the, I don't want to say promises, but it was one of the underlying issues with the passage of the half-cent tax when we were trying to, build that road, build that interchange. So, but how do we approach that area, and how do we increase our revenue base with retail business?
Well, as I understand it, the area beyond the interchange has never been annexed. That has not been signed. And so it is my feeling in talking with the developers, which we'll talk a little bit more about, as my opponent has said, I am backed by developers. I'm backed by a variety of people in the community, including developers. And you can't really say that you're talking to the entire community if you're not including community leaders and industry leaders such as developers. You also can't complain that nothing is being developed out there if you're not having conversations with those developers. I know that some of their feelings have been that it's difficult to work with the city of Maumelle and the council. So perhaps if there was a little bit easier open dialogue of communication and an easier way for them to come and work with the council, perhaps the development would happen. I know my opponent is not pro-development at all. I am pro-resident. So if the residents feel like we need more development, and if the city feels like we need more development, and let me also say that business development does help decrease the need for additional taxes on residents. So I think for me, I would want to study and research and talk to more of the developers and find out what's happening. But from what I can tell, from my point of view, is that they're not truly being supported. But if I could also, since my opponent took his turn to address some of the comments that I made, I'd like that same opportunity.
30 seconds.
Mr. Mosley said that he has represented the Country Club of Arkansas. Sir, you have not. I would like for you to tell us what ways that you do communicate with the Country Club of Arkansas residents. I would like for you to explain to us which residents asked for the trees and all the different improvements and the things that you just mentioned for the Country Club of Arkansas. You have not communicated with those residents.
Time is up. Mr. Mosley, I'm going to allow you to respond to that. And Ms. Gronwald, I'm going to allow you to respond to his response.
Right.
Okay, we get some fireworks going.
Well,
here.
Ain't nothing better than a good fist fight. So let's get it going. Mr. Mosley,
I have communicated with my constituents over there. I have some people that live there. I send out an update every once in a while on the issues. I probably have not sent out as many updates in the last year and a half to kind of let the new mayor get his feet on the ground and find out what we're doing on some things. But that's one thing I've done. As far as the tax election out there, I went and way overboard to dissect every aspect of that. Who was in the vision group, which is pretty much a developer group. Some things like that. I try to communicate, and what we do is I send out about 200 emails to my constituents. I've got an email address book of 200 constituents. I have people that live in the country club that pass around to probably another 400 to 600 more. So my emails get out there. Ms. Gronwald must not be on my list. And I'm happy to include her on my list if she'll send me an email. I've never actually met Ms. Gronwald before. I don't know that she's ever come before the council and spoken about anything. So this is kind of new tonight to find out what she's for and what she's against. You said I'm not pro-development. You're right. I'm not pro-development. What I believe in is more of it's a natural development. Don't ask me to subsidize the developers. If the zoning's there and economics work, then build something. I'm more than happy for you too. I think that's great. But don't ask me to subsidize you. I think I've responded to everything she said there. I think that was it. Thank you very much. Appreciate the chance to respond. Thanks.
Ms. Gronwald, you can respond to his response, and then I'm going to take it on into your closing remarks. So this will be your final open-ended response.
Great. Thank you, Neal. Mr. Mosley, I have actually seen your email. It was not sent to me, and I am your constituent. And I can attest that it does not go out to the 200, the plus 600, the 400. I'm not sure you even know how many people that you send your email out to. But every constituent that I have talked to, and I can tell you it's a lot, and I've also sent out letters, postcards, gone door to door. I have a website, regular posts on Facebook, and an e-blast. And every constituent I've talked to has never heard from you. So I'm not sure if you're sending them out to people that are your friends. I don't know who they're going to, but they're not going to your constituents. So that's number one. Number two, in some of your flyers that you've been handing out recently, as well as an email message, you said that we've never met. Have you ever reached out to me in all of my contact information that's all over the place? Have you reached out to me and asked me to sit down for coffee to meet? No, sir, you have not. Further, me deciding to run on the city council has been a minimum of a 2-year-long process of research, conversations, and so on. I have attended city council meetings for at least the past year. Just because I have not presented a proposal to the city council is not, sir, a prerequisite to be a good councilman. But I have attended many, many city council meetings, and I've met with the mayor, and I've met with the police, and I've met with constituents and community leaders.
30 seconds.
That's it.
Okay. Thank you both for your transparency. I think we're at the point that I'm going to allow Mr. Mosley to do his closing 2 minutes. And then Ms. Gronwald, you'll have the final say, and you may use that 2 minutes in any way you wish. You can have prepared or continue to respond to each other. Mr. Mosley?
Okay, yeah, if I've served 8 years. If I'm reelected, I will continue to basically advocate for the residents of my ward at the city council. There's a lot of people that run for the city council for various reasons. A lot of them run to try to advocate for special interests like developers, like pit bulldogs, splash pads, things like that. I'm not a member of any special interest group. I imagine, I've been attacked here by my opponent, so I'll mention that she's probably being pushed by the special interest groups. And I would ask you to ask her what she feels on pit bulls. We voted that issue down about a year ago, and I voted to keep the ban on pit bulls in place just from a safety aspect. I think dog rescues and all that are very honorable things to do, and I'm glad people do that sort of thing. I do not have a beef with pit bulls. I just basically want to keep Maumelle as safe as possible. That's what people want. As far as what I'll do in the next few years, I'll again keep residents as top priority. If residents and developers clash like they did at Maumelle Country Club, or they wanted to build more high density housing, I voted to not allow that. I voted to, I will continue, and I will not raise your taxes.
30 seconds.
That is first and foremost. If we get to the point where we don't think we have enough money for this, that, and the other, we'll cut services. That's what I think we need to do. Government needs to live within its means. And we've already raised the taxes a penny the last 8 years, and I did not vote to put that on the ballot because it was a tax increase. And it was a special election and so on and so forth. Anyway, yeah, I'd like for Ms. Greenwald to state where she stands on pit bulls.
Okay.
I think that's an important
Mosley,
issue.
we appreciate your time and your comments. Ms. Gronwald, you have the final 2 minutes.
Thank you, Neal. I do have a statement that I want to quickly read, but I also want to quickly address what Mr. Mosley said, that I attacked him. I'm not attacking you, sir. I'm simply responding in factual statements to some of the claims that you have made and on some of the propaganda that you have put out there. So I just want to close by saying thank you again to the Maumelle Lions Club and our host this evening for the opportunity to communicate with our fellow Maumelle residents. I'd like to leave you with a few final thoughts. Having studied the Maumelle Council for nearly 2 years now in order to make this decision, my first question was, am I needed? Can I offer our city something that is currently lacking on the council? Many conversations and with community leaders and council meetings later, I came to the decision that I would fill a need in our ward. As a professional fundraiser, I'm trained to be fiscally responsible and conservative with funds. I do have a plan for opportunities where we would not be spending city operating budget. Where I do differ from my opponent is that I will keep an open mind with any proposal brought to the council and communicate and listen to the residents, research the issue, and then make a decision. No one can promise no new taxes. As a resident myself, as I mentioned, it would be difficult to support a tax. But unless my opponent has a crystal ball, it is unrealistic to make those promises without knowing what all may be faced in the future. My opponent has distributed misleading propaganda stating that I am backed by developers, framing it in a negative tone, proving that he has not had open dialogue with any developers. While I'm unclear what this means to him, I will say for someone who claims to listen to the residents, he doesn't seem to value building relationships with all residents, including developers. Further, my opponent claims that he is fiscally conservative and yet felt free to cost the city upwards of $5,000 in legal fees defending a frivolous and self-serving lawsuit contesting 40 feet of fence line. And with that, I appreciate the time and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
All right. Well, guys, I appreciate both of you.
Can I respond to all this, all these accusations at the tail end of her deal?
I'll give you 30 seconds and then I'll give Ms. Gronwald an additional 30 seconds.
Okay. I'm not exactly sure what I heard there, but I think she said I somehow or another caused the city $5,000 in legal fees or something like that. There was I'm not going to get into it at the end of this thing here, but that do not raise an issue like that at the tail end of a debate. That's not fair and that's not right. So just anyway, thank you very much, Lions Club, for having this. I appreciate your time. And I appreciate everybody that's run for office this time. This is, everybody does need a choice. Everybody needs to be challenged. So thank you.
Christine, did you have any other comments? 30 seconds.
Yes, I did. And that is factual information. I read the court documents and talked to others in the city. And it's about as fair, sir, as you including an editorial piece in the last city council meeting, using your public seat and your public platform to dispute an issue based on opinion and not fact. That's all I have to say. Thank you so much, Mr. Moore.
All right, candidates, I appreciate your time. We're going to wrap it up on this race.
Can I respond to that last one?
No. You both have about 3 weeks. You can get out there and campaign, and I feel like we're just going to go out into the weeds if we continue. But I do appreciate the comments. I've got 3 other races to cover, so I do appreciate it.
Thank you, Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Mosley. Thank you, Ms. Gronwald. Now we're going to shuffle in our next 2 candidates. technically we're going to shuffle in one more candidate. This position, this is Ward 2, position 1. It is a seat held now by Marion Scott Coney, who announced she would not seek re-election. And I just want, as one who has known Marion for a good while, I want to salute her for her service to the city. She's been an exemplary city council member, and certainly would her shoes will be hard to fill, and she will be missed by the city. And so Marion, I hope you're watching. We love you and we thank you for your service. Our first candidate was to be Mr. Rick Anderson. Mr. Anderson was not able to be here tonight for family reasons. And so we will skip right on into his opponent, Mr. RJ Mazzoni. RJ is 52 years old. He works as an instructor pilot at Little Rock Air Force Base's C-130 simulator. So he's actually, for those C-130s that like come right over your house, that's his fault. No, it's not. He's trying to keep those guys from running into your house. But no, that's part of their exercise. But it is humorous how many people freak out when the C-130s go low. Prior to that, he served for 21 years in the Air Force. After retiring from the Air Force, he and his wife, Carla, chose Maumelle as the best choice to settle down and raise their sons, Lucas and Nate. They have 2 adopted pound puppies, Cletus and Snickers, that round out their family. Mazzoni also serves on the board of directors for the Maumelle Marlins. He's a graduate of the United States Air Force Academy and completed his master's degree from Webster University. This is his second run for the city council. Mr. Mazzoni will begin with an opening statement lasting no more than 5 minutes. And since you're the only one who's going to speak on this race, we may do a little more dialogue between you and I than since you don't have an opponent who will also speaking. So, Mr. Mazzoni.
Thanks. Yeah. First off, I want to again say kind of mirror what you said about Marion. She's been an awesome council member for the past few years, and definitely will be big shoes to fill. Having said that, I'm hoping to be the one who gets to fill in her shoes. Like I said, I came here after retiring from the Air Force. I served for 21 years as a C-130 pilot. Other than that, I also did stuff. As you grow senior, you get more responsibility. So I've been a program manager for different programs with $20+ million budgets. I spent 4 years of strategic planning out, assigned to CENTCOM for the Special Operations Forces out in Iraq and Afghanistan. So I have the background of doing both long-term and crisis planning. And that's what I want to bring to Maumelle. This is a great city. We all love it. We wouldn't be here. You asked earlier about how to get more people here. I don't think that's a problem. If you talk to the realtors, we have a housing shortage. We can't get it. There's more people want to be here than we have houses for sale. But we do need to count, and we need to track more of the business side. And that is where, as a city, we need help. From 2015 to 2019, our operational spending increased by $2.5 million a year over that span, while our revenue has only increased by $1.5 million. We can't keep that going. We went from almost a $900,000 budget surplus to last year, $100,000 budget deficit just in operating expenses. And this will be the 3rd year that we pull from our city fund. The city fund has a good balance, but it's not infinite. And we no longer have the capability of committing to large capital projects. And that is not a way for us to survive. So we have to develop a 5-year plan. I've done both for ground stuff and budget, and that's what I want to do. So we don't have to raise taxes that the first 2 people have been arguing about. If we don't fix this soon, there will be a tax increase, and I want to avoid that. Like you said, I ran 2 years ago, and my message is the same. It would have been easier 2 years ago if we started a long-term budget and curbing our expenses. However, like they say about trees, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is right now. So we need to start with this year and develop a long-term budget, figure out our needs, and we need to start working on developing our business infrastructure. Major NARS has come up with an excellent project up in the northern side. We need to keep that going. And we also have to go back to that third interchange. I supported that, and like many people, we supported that on the idea that that would bring the required revenue and business that we need to survive, and yet it's still not annexed. So we need to bring back and focus the city, our efforts into developing that, get that annexed, get talking with them, get a cooperation going between us and the landowners so we can develop that. And that's about all I have for right now.
Well, let's pursue your line of your opening statement. You know, you have, back when you ran 2 years ago, and even during this election, through your Facebook posts and your door hangers, you know, you continue to bang that drum about, I guess basically you're saying we are deficit spending, because if spending is, you know, outpacing income, then that's deficit spending.
Yes, sir.
So without getting too complicated, because I don't want you to confuse me, what are some of the steps we need to take? I mean, do we just need to trim fat? I mean, we have excellent city services, and I know we don't want to see those diminish in quality, obviously. Mm-hmm. So what are some of your thoughts of how we achieve that?
The best way is we have to start with an actual good forecast of our revenue. That's number one. The model I had has been within 0.5% of our actual. This year has been an anomaly, but for the good side. Since we don't have much retail and all the stores have been closed, most people have been buying a lot on Amazon. And as a result, our sales tax for this year is up over $100,000 above our projection. Hopefully that trend will continue as we start opening up more, but it's still too early to tell. But that will be very helpful if people have shifted their buying habits more to online than before. But that's the first step. Two, our expenses always come in way below the budget. We have to look and see where those differences are. And more importantly, I've stopped looking at budget, because looking at budgeted numbers isn't the best thing to do. I'm looking at actual spending. And if we count that the same, it's been pretty steady. It's just looking at our upcoming increases in the budget. So to cut it short, we have about $500,000 increase per year. That is the amount of spending that we can increase total, or we will pull more from the budget. If we start doing that and rank and file where that's at, that's where we're gonna be able to identify what fat to trim. If you hold it to that, it'll be a hard process, but we have to do it. There's no other option at this point.
Well, you know, I think there's a certain amount of confusion over the North Interchange and even the city's ability to annex. You know, can that even take place? I mean, I'm certainly not an expert on that topic, but I'm kind of like you. To me, that feels kind of how it was sold. You know, let's get that interchange, and you know, we're gonna attract businesses, increase revenue. You know, and I think we will increase some revenue with the home building going on out in that area. That will help. And obviously we'll always get a piece of the county's, you know, revenue, even if we don't annex it, but I think we can do better than that. How deeply have you looked into the complexity of annexation for that area?
You're right, where it's complex. And that's why my original 5-year plan went 5 years without any revenue from those areas, to give that time to develop and to annex. When you're talking with landowners, developers, however have it, this is not a please come in. With everything, there's going to be cooperation. We need to figure out the best way to make it worth their while and our while, so we can get that land annexed, because that is our future, both from the interchange and around that Morgan Maumelle exit. without any development out there, we don't have that much more land inside that we can develop, especially because we're really landlocked with only two to three entrances now. We need something as a stop between say, Conway and Little Rock. I have relatives that live out in Dardanelle. They drive I-40 all the time, and there's no place stopping when you're traveling cross country when you beat Conway out until well past Little Rock. So that's where one of those exits will, if we start developing it, we'll bring travelers, we'll start bringing money, we'll bring restaurants. We have to start low, and after that, once you make it a go-to place, more will follow. We need to jump on the fact that Amazon is bringing in a distribution center. While we won't get much tax revenue on it, that's an anchor. That's something that we can show other areas. Hey, we've got this. We are a great city. Start here. And if we have interest here, then the owners of those lands will obviously want to annex because they will make money and we will make money.
Let me ask you one more question along the same lines. Are we doing a good enough job with our development of our industrial park? I know times are challenging, but can we do a better job there, which would also increase revenue and add jobs and so forth?
You can always say better, but we've done a lot there. We've got a lot there. I mean, with all the Huggies, everything we have, you can always do better, but I think we have done really well with the industrial park.
Okay. What
we need is the residential, we need the sales tax. That's what we need, which we won't get at the industrial park.
Right. So, okay. So I just heard Mr. Mosley say he'll never support taxes. Of course, you're not running against him. Did I just hear you say we need a sales tax?
No, we need sales tax revenue.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Not an increase in sales tax. Yeah. No.
Yeah, that would not be a good handle for you to take on right now.
No, we need, and that's why we need a budget so we don't increase taxes anymore. I mean, our sales tax is higher than New York City.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you have a closing 2 minutes or have to go on, or did you just want me to ask you another question?
Go ahead, ask me another question. It'll be pretty much a rehash from before.
Okay. Well, I'll ask you one final question. And this is, probably I'm going to ask the same question of the Ward 4 position 1 candidates with, we have an area called North Maumelle that most people don't even know is Maumelle. Are we doing enough there? Is there potential there? Can we grow that area? Can we make it more attractive to either industry or business?
Oh, we definitely can. And actually, I've read a little bit of the proposal coming up from the last planning committee, but there is already in the works, Major Norris put together some building out there that I don't have all the details, don't remember them offhand, but it is a start. Because again, most of that land isn't ours, some of it is, so it's going to be a patchwork. And like everything, if we develop what we have, then we can bring more in and convince the people there. But there's definitely work. That was one place that Bass Pro looked at before they built where they're at. So there's definite room for growth. So that whole interchange after that would be opened up. So that's a definite area that especially if we don't get any traction on the third exit, would be another area to focus our efforts on.
All right. Well, I'm going to give you 30 seconds or however long you want to take to wrap it up and promote yourself and ask for votes. So I'll let you finish it out.
All right. Thank you. Not much to say. I say Marion has done an awesome job. She will be hard to follow. Hopefully I'll be the one to do it. Again, my biggest focus is going to be on a long-term budget. We have got so much going for us. We just need to start planning. We've just never had before. Now the need is here, so we need to plan it so we don't get any need for a sales tax increase, because like Mr. Mosley, I'm against it all. But if we don't do something now, it will happen, and whether or not I'm it or not, that needs to be the focus of the next 4 years. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mazzoni. All right. We will transition to our Ward 4 Position 1 candidates. We'll give our little behind the scene wizard a second to do that. The candidates for Ward 4 Position 1 are Mr. Doug Shinn and the incumbent, John Vapreszan. So as soon as I see them, we will get it underway. So just hang tight. I told them if you took too long, I was going to sing. And you don't want that to happen. There's Mr. Vapreszan. And there's Mr. Shinn. All right. Welcome, gentlemen. Let me first introduce our first speaker. I guess you guys saw the first round, or I don't want to refer to it as the first round. It kind of was a round or two. And I'll try to stick to the script of timing, but if we have something interesting occur, then we may just banter. But we'll start off following the rules anyway. Let me first introduce Doug Shinn, who's 59 years old. He has an educational background in business management, economics, and family counseling. His business experience includes 25 years of management and operations in the hospitality industry, 3 years overseeing facilities and purchasing at the charter school, leading up to the transition from the trailer park, as we all remember, to brick and mortar buildings, followed by 10 years in the insurance and funeral industry. And he's also been involved in the home and commercial renovation experience. His personal interest includes serving for the Maumelle Friends of the Animals. Matter of fact, he has a puppy dog print on his yard signs. So that tells me that there's some insight right there, Mr. Shinn. I'll let you open with your an opening statement that can last up to 5 minutes, but it certainly doesn't have to. Mr. Shinn. I think you're muted. Unmute yourself.
There we are.
There you are.
Thank you, Neal. What led me to run is watching some friends bicker at my hometown. They were constantly fighting on social media and not making any difference. And I was giving them grief over it and decided I needed to step up and put up or shut up. So I needed to make a difference in my own community. I'm excited with what the growth I see going on here. I'm just concerned on how we're going to pay for some of what we have planned. We seem to have a really good 3 to 5 year plan out there. I'm worried about what's going to happen in the next 2. While I don't want to see us have to raise taxes either, we've got to find more streams of income. And that's where my main focus is. There's all this talk about the dogs and chickens and things like that. That's not my main concern for Maumelle. I'm not saying I'm not concerned about it, but I think our focus needs to be on where we're leading our city and how we're going to pay for what we're going to do.
Okay, does that conclude your opening?
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll let Mr. Vapreszan, who's 53 years old. He's lived in Maumelle since 2010. He is the pastor of Freedom Baptist Church and also owns Wolverine Roofing Company. He's served on the city council for 6 years and has worked with the police department as their chaplain. He's on the community relations board for Methodist Behavioral Hospital, and he works weekly with the Hope Alliance Food Ministry in Morgan. He's been the chairperson of the annexation committee, and he is married to Carmen. So, Mr. Vapreszan, up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Neal. Thank you to the Lions Club. Again, my name is John Vapreszan. Moved here from Michigan in September of 2010, and people always ask me, why did you move here? Simple answer was God. I didn't come here because it was my idea. I believe been pastoring for 25 years, worked with my dad for 15 of those years, and he is still pastoring the same church for 48 years, and I knew it was my time. And the door opened here, and we moved to Freedom Baptist there in the Morgan area. It's right across from Bobby's Cafe, and been there since September of 2010, and moved here to Maumelle. Was put on the city council, appointed by the city council after our newly elected city attorney, Caleb Norris, was elected, and I took that position, and then was reelected 2 years later. Did not have a running mate at that point. My wife Jennifer and I were married 28 and a half years. We have 2 children. Preston is 27, Alexis is 25. She passed away in 2016, and I went on a missions trip to Romania and fell in love with our interpreter and decided she was pretty and I was bringing her back. So my pastor's salary would not provide what needed to be provided for to get her here. 10 trips later to Romania, I was able to bring her back, and she is incredible. As Neal said, I've had the opportunity to serve as a chaplain for the Maumelle Police Department, Community Relations Board, Methodist Behavioral Hospital Community Relations Board when Maumelle Water Management was in existence. I directed the mentorship program at Oak Grove Elementary, served all these years over at Hope Alliance Food Ministry, served as the chaplain for Stonehaven Assisted Living Center, chaired the Maumelle Annexation Committee, voted Maumelle Citizen of the Year in 2014. Education background, 4 college degrees, the last being a doctor of ministry. As far as my platform, it's the same for 6 years. It's changed a little bit. Public safety has ramped up. We were losing a lot of good officers because compensation was not equal to local communities around us. We've worked hard to make sure that we have the best officers and we keep our officers. So public safety was always big. Fiscal conservatism is always big. I was asked about issue 1 and voting to keep the half-cent sales tax that the state has in place. And what would my thought on that? One thing that's important to note, to just tell the folks this: Maumelle reaps the benefit of that half-cent sales tax every year to the tune of $400,000. If that half-cent sales tax goes away, revenue streams of $400,000 will go away to Maumelle Street Fund, which is how much we pay for our street overlay. So that's just kind of something to think about. Appropriate annexation, as I said, being on the annexation committee, and then several years ago when we voted on the sales tax, there was one on for the northern end of town as well, because there's a lot of property there sitting there. As was mentioned, Bass Pro looked there, but it's not shovel ready. We need some money to make it shovel ready, but that was voted down several years ago when the sales tax was voted in for the police and fire. So there's some low-hanging fruit there, but it's just not ready, and we need some finances to take care of that. Taking care of the needs of Ward 4 is a big platform. We just had the overlay in Odom North. We got new alleyways off of Garden Oaks to the tune of $350,000. And then we were just entering the project, the $4 million project needed to take care of major drainage issues in Ward 4. So those are some of the things that have been going on, and would love the opportunity to have more of the same.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Vapreszan. I want to get more into the revenue. I mean, I think that's a hot topic, and it's probably not the sexiest topic, but it's certainly one that affects all of our future, really, of our revenue and the things that we can do to continue the quality of Maumelle that we have now. That is probably the reason that's attracted many of us here. But let me start with you, Mr. Shinn, on why do you, and I'm not asking you to attack Mr. Vapreszan by no means, but what are you going to bring to the table that he hasn't, and why do we need to elect you instead of him after he's served 6 years?
Okay. First, my background, 25 years in hotels and development. I've listened to the good and the bad comments on development. Well, somebody has to come in and want to do the job first. The city, if they want that business, is going to have to work more cooperatively to get it. An associate of mine, when I was in the hotel business, was responsible for putting this Hampton Inn in Maumelle. They were approached by North Little Rock to move it across the road, and they would have actually broken ground in half the time than what they had to go through to locate that property in Maumelle. And It shouldn't be that hard. Our cities that we compete with, such as North Little Rock, do have a fast track plan. We need a fast track plan. I think that the annexation proposals that we have now are great, but our history with annexation has been very weak. We need to be a little more aggressive, in my opinion. Communities I've been in the past, I've seen very good decisions made and more of an aggressive approach to bring in development and industry. I've also seen them sit back and say, we're great, come here. And that does not work. And I think at times that's how Maumelle has approached certain development. I'm excited about some of the proposals that I've seen. I'm just not sure they're going to get here quick enough for the money that we need. And we need to look at other options. And sometimes when the people are approached, they find other metrics to look at other than just the standard spreadsheets that they see every day. And then they do go on and locate there, but the approach has to be made differently.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shinn. Mr. Vapreszan, so I'll ask the same question to you in a different way.
Okay.
Let's act like this is your six-year review. Why do we need to keep you on?
I've been able to graduate from the Community Development Institute up in Conway. And now that Mayor Norris, Scott Grummer, and Judy Keller, together with this administration, have an incredible plan, they have moved forward quicker on things that were sitting for years on desks to get things done. For instance, Crystal Hill, that started years and years and years ago, a long time ago, and Mayor Norris was able to fast track that, so to speak. Matter of fact, and trim the fat off of that, so it's not going to cost as much. One thing about community development to need to know is this. Well, COVID's got one portion of it, but the other portion is this. Any small city, the very first thing that's going to move into a small city is going to be a Dollar General. The second thing, if it's a restaurant, it's going to be Sonic. You go into small cities, you're going to see a Dollar General, and then you might see a Sonic. Whether it's Chick-fil-A will not go into a city because they have market people that look at the dynamics of every city, and they will not even look at going into a city until it meets certain criteria. So until we are able to meet that criteria, and I think with 1,000 new homes that are going in down there at the new exit, that's going to bring a lot of revenue potential for them. I think it will bolster. I mean, there's a reason that we have so many liquor stores, so many health facilities, and 2 golf courses in Maumelle. And that's because 37% of our population is retired. So they look at all these numbers and they want to see where we're at. They want to see who's going to shop here, who's going to spend here, who's going to come here. So in their matrix of looking at Maumelle, once these new homes start popping in at the south end, I really believe then developers are going to hop to it and say, okay, now that these homes here, why would I put a big box store in if there's nobody there? You put 1,000 extra homes with 3,500 extra residents in, now they're going to start looking.
Okay. All right, I'm going to ask one final question of each of you. I'll go back to you. I'll start with you, Mr. Vapreszan, so we don't go in the same order. You've served on the annexation committee. You've obviously done a lot of homework and looking at annexation. I don't totally understand it because I'm not that bright, but it seems to be, I keep being told that the new interchange, that's a complicated annexation. Is there a way to accomplish that annexation?
Oh yeah, yes, sir. Folks have been talked to, and I think before I sign over something to you on the dotted line, first of all, if I'm going to be a part of the city of Maumelle, they have to have the opportunity to have public services. So if that south end, now we have to put in a new police station, a new fire station. Mm-hmm. These are things that we have to service if it's now Maumelle. So there's a lot of things taken into consideration that people say, oh, we need to annex, we need to annex, we need to annex. Well, we don't have the money right now to build a new fire station, to build another police station. So there are some things that are ready to happen. They're lined up, but a lot of things have to get in rows before these folks are going to sign on the dotted line. But trust me, there are a lot of builders down there that are looking and waiting and are ready to come into the city of Maumelle. And there are some at the north end that are already in Maumelle that are waiting. Jason Polk, who owns Lake Liquor, cannot wait to open up a new microbrewery up there and a restaurant. And it's going to be absolutely beautiful, but we need to get services there that he can do that.
All right, Mr. Shinn, what's your response to that?
Well, I agree. The plan for the north exit's great, but there's also already services along the highway. There's property to be developed along the highway that already falls in our annexed land that is not being developed. And also to address one thing that John said, I love his shirt, by the way, is that he said, he started talking about matrix. Well, yes, those are important, but he doesn't know that the first roadside McDonald's that was on the interstate was in Caddo Valley, Arkansas. They flew a helicopter in there from headquarters in Dallas and landed on the lot and looked the man like he was crazy. But because he had so many McDonald's, they wouldn't tell him no. Now you can't travel down the interstate without a McDonald's being on about every other exit. Same way with Walmart, and there's super centers along smaller communities. Used to, it had to have a certain size. Because of the way they were approached, they realized they were not looking at all the demographics. There are a lot of smaller towns that can go to a town of 10,000 and use a super center when it didn't meet the criteria before. It's all in who looks at it and what they see, and decisions can be made that are in our favor.
Okay. I don't know how many times I've heard, too bad we let Walmart go to North Little Rock. I just hope we don't. I hope
Don't ask me about that.
I hope
My opinions about that too.
let's not repeat that. Well, that was a former regime. I'm going to turn it over to you now for your final 2-minute close. And Mr. Vapreszan, your 2 minutes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Neal, and thank you again to the Lions Club for this opportunity. Thank you to Doug for, I guess, when you have an opponent, it makes you be a little more honest about yourself. I have absolutely loved serving the city of Maumelle as city council for 6 years and had the opportunity to serve in so many capacities. I'm going to close, Neal, with something that you'll appreciate. A quote from Secondhand Lions. If you've not seen the movie, it's an awesome movie, but this is what he said. He said, sometimes the things that may or may not be true are the things that a man needs to believe in the most, that people are basically good, that honor, courage, and virtue mean everything. The power and money and power mean nothing, that good always triumphs over evil. And I want you to remember this, that love, true love, never dies. No matter if they're true or not, a man should believe in those things because those are the things worth believing in. And we're here on this planet for a short time, leaving a small footprint. And at the end of the day, influence is what we have. And I'm grateful for the influence that I've been having the opportunity to take. And again, thank you so much for the time.
Thank you, John. Mr. Shinn.
Well, I'd say I appreciate what John had to say tonight. And my real concern, though, that I've seen, I'm taking this back to the discussion about Ward 1. Whether communication is really good or really bad, it's in the perception of the people in the ward. We've got to make better communication. When we lost our newspaper, the community did not make the transition broadly to social media. We've got to find better ways to reach out. When things are being done, they need to know it's being done. When there's a major change, they need to know there's a major change. Because when you vote for something expecting it to be one way and they take part of it off, you feel like you've been cheated by the city, and people don't like that.
All right. Well, gentlemen, I thank you for your time and your transparency and your comments. You both have about 3 weeks left to sway the public to your side. So get out there and get to work, and thank you again. And we will take a brief intermission. We said 5 minutes, but Julia, maybe just 2 or 3 while we get everybody else saddled up, or whatever Julia tells me.
Sounds good. 3 minutes.
Okay, I'm going to get a water, so I'll be right back. I'm ready when you are, Julia.
Let's go.
All righty. I see our two candidates are lined up and ready. They've made it through our other battles. So let's start another one. Our two candidates tonight representing the Democratic Party, Kayla Applegate, and representing the Republican Party and the incumbent, Mark Lowery. First, let me introduce Kayla Applegate. She's 33. She's an attorney. She was born in North Little Rock and grew up in Sheridan, just right up the road from Fordyce. Kayla earned a bachelor's degree in English from ASU in Jonesboro. She earned a law degree from the University of Arkansas at Little Rock William H. Bowen School of Law. She's an attorney with James House Downing in Lucan. She and her husband Ryan live in Maumelle with their two dogs, Banjo and Bella. How can you dislike somebody with a dog named Banjo? And they've been married 8 years. Miss Applegate, we will let you start with your 5 minutes.
Thank you, Neal. And I want to extend a welcome to everybody watching at home tonight. I also want to thank the Maumelle Lions Club for hosting this forum in order to educate voters and make them aware of the candidates and our positions. And I want to extend a thank you to my opponent, Representative Lowery, for being here and participating as well. My name is Kayla Applegate, and I'm running for state representative. I come from the typical middle-class Arkansas family. I was born in North Little Rock, not far from here, and parts of our district that's in District 39. We moved to Sheridan when I was in 4th grade because my dad had a job opportunity there. My dad was a disabled Army veteran who became an electrician and started as a small business. My mom was a public school secretary for her entire career. When my parents were raising me and I was growing up, they told me, like so many parents do, that I could do anything and be anything that I wanted to. And because of the example that they set for me in always lending a helping hand to others, I knew I wanted to be an attorney in order to advocate for people in the legal system. And I've spent my career advocating for Arkansas families and small businesses. Now I want to advocate for the people of District 39 in Arkansas. I don't want to just advocate for those with money or influence. I want to advocate and represent all Arkansans. To do that, I've come up with a plan that has 4 basic tenets. Number 1, I want to increase economic opportunities for all Arkansans. Number 2, I want to invest in infrastructure that's going to create jobs and grow small businesses. Number 3, I want to improve our public education and healthcare systems. Number 4, I want to implement criminal justice reform. Now, I'm not naive. I understand these are big aspirations, but it's my hope that fellow legislators will see that these are issues that aren't just Republican issues. They're not just Democrat issues. They are policies that benefit everyone. And I hope when elected to be able to reach across the aisle and make our state work for as many people as possible. Thank you. Neal, I think you're on mute.
Darn it. I had to cough. All right, sorry about that. So let me introduce the incumbent, Mr. Mark Lowery. Mark is 63 and has served District 39. This is his 4th term. He's the House Chair of the Insurance and Commerce Committee, a member of the Education Committee, as well as the Arkansas Legislative Council. He represents Arkansas on the Southern Educational Regional Board. He also serves on the Education Committee of the Southern Legislative Conference. He's a member of the Rotary Club, Lions Club, the Maumelle Chamber of Commerce, and serves on the board for the North Little Rock Chamber. He's lived in Maumelle for 14 years. He received his BA and MA in communications from the U of A at Fayetteville. He's a former instructor and debate coach at UCA, and he's also still an adjunct instructor occasionally at Henderson State University. Mr. Lowery, your 5 minutes are up to 5 minutes. I think you're on mute too, Mark. Click that little microphone. There you go.
How's that? Okay, sorry about that. Well, you took up about half of what I had here as notes. So thank you very much. We'll be able to let people go home early or watch Netflix or something. I want to thank you, Neal, for once again moderating this. And I also want to thank my fellow members at the Lions Club for hosting this. And also, Kayla, thank you very much for being here tonight. And I want to thank you also for a very collegial and cordial race that we've run so far. And so thank you. When I first came to Maumelle, it was actually in 1990. I was editor of the Maumelle Monitor. And I lived in North Little Rock at that time and drove over into Maumelle. I knew there was something special about this city. And I hoped even then that someday I'd have the opportunity to live in Maumelle. I never thought when I wanted to live in Maumelle that I would have the opportunity and the privilege of representing this great city. And of course, I'm also extremely proud of the rest of District 39 that I represent with Marche, Morgan, Oak Grove, and the folks over in the Amboy community. Neal's already mentioned several of the things that I'm involved in, specifically education. Governor Hutchinson appointed me to represent Arkansas on the Southern Regional Education Board, and I've been extremely proud of that tenure and also excited about some of the issues that we've been able to hear in conferences and bring them back as we've been discussing adequacy. One of the things that I'm really advocating for, based on the science, we found that if students do not read at grade level by the fourth grade, then they never catch up. And so what I'm trying to do is advocate for us shifting more money towards those lower grades, kindergarten through fourth grade. The research shows that will most affect what we refer to as the poverty gap. Those who may not have two parents in the household, may not have books at home to help them in terms of their reading. And so those are just some of the issues that we're looking at in terms of education. I've been extremely proud to advocate for school choice. One of the things that is great about Maumelle is we have a wonderful charter school. It was the first charter school in the state of Arkansas. Then it was called Academics Plus. It's now called Maumelle Charter. And, there's constant attacks on the charter school concept. And I don't really understand that because they are public schools and the students there are doing a great job. Those both elementary and high school are straight A schools. The other issue that I want to point out is that I've been proud under Governor Hutchinson's administration to vote for $250 million in tax cuts since the 2015 session. And part of that, a significant part of that, was in the 2017 session where we cut 50 million and took 120,000 low wage income earners off the tax rolls. So they pay no taxes at all. So that's one of the things that we've been able to do as a legislature, and being able to give tax relief to those who most need it. I've also been advocating for improved broadband through the state of Arkansas because, boy, it's really become extremely important now with our distance learning. And so we're expanding, making sure that all students have access. Also, as part of the education committee, one of the things I advocated for in the 17 session was eliminating the PARCC test, which many states had already been eliminating it. And we've transitioned to the ACT and the ACT Aspire. And then the other thing related to education that I'm extremely proud of is that I've been the sponsor of every major piece of legislation related to homeschooling. We have a very large homeschool contingent in the state of Arkansas. And my love for that started with the Tim Tebow legislation in 2013, my very first session. That allows homeschool students to be able to participate in extracurricular activities at their local public school. And it has really bridged the gap that existed between public schools and those who are homeschooling. Now, see, I'm getting a warning sign. So one of the things, my kids, my daughter is in Maryland with my granddaughter, Violet, who is 1 year old tomorrow. And my son is in South Carolina, and they both asked me to give them a shout out. So that's what I'm doing, shouting out. So thank you very much for allowing me this opportunity to be with you tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Lowery. I want to take the discussion. I'm going to I'll go first to Ms. Applegate. You know, COVID-19 has affected our state like, I'm not a historian, but I can't imagine anything that's had more impact at so many different levels. And as you pointed out, Mark, particularly on education, industry, business, healthcare, it's the blight of the land right now. And bar a vaccine, and hopefully that will come soon. What Ms. Applegate, what would you do differently, and what would be your vision for trying to deal with this disease?
Thank you, Neal. I think that's an excellent question. Unfortunately, what I would do differently goes back to structural and systematic changes that we should have implemented a long time ago. And that's two main things. Number one, making sure that more Arkansans in the state are covered by insurance. And two, making sure that we have the medical infrastructure in place necessary to deal with a pandemic like this in the first place. As it relates to health insurance, our state, we've got about 240,000 people or over that who lack health insurance. Now, while we've implemented Arkansas Works and expanded that, we still have a long way to go. States we've seen who have handled the pandemic better and been able to recover more quickly, especially their economies, they have had those two critical things in place. They've had a lower rate of those with insurance or without insurance, and they have had more medical infrastructure in place. That means more hospital beds to be able to better handle the pandemic for when people ultimately have, the worst symptoms and have to go into the hospital. Obviously, we've got those beds right now, but we're looking at, cases are continuing to go up every single day, and more people are in the hospital, more people today on ventilators. And so if we would have had those two things in place, we would have been better equipped to deal with this pandemic, and we could have already been on the road to economic recovery. So those are two things that when elected, I'm going to work to achieve, is making sure that we've got that medical infrastructure in place and making sure that we can insure as many Arkansans as our state can handle.
Right. Okay. Mr. Lowery, your response to the same question.
Well, I think Arkansas has actually handled this extremely well. Governor Hutchinson really resisted a lot of calls for us to have an absolute shutdown. And actually his decision, even though there was pressure on him from all fronts and the national media was basically making fun of him in Arkansas, his decision was the correct one. Mainly because in 2013, in my first session, we did pass Arkansas Works. And Arkansas Works is a very specific Medicaid expansion program that very few other states have. It gives private insurance to those working class poor people. So they don't have to stand in line, which may actually occur with Medicaid or typical Medicaid expansion. They actually have their own private insurance. One of the things that we've been seeing with a lot of people that got cut from their health insurance if they worked for a company and they worked 40 hours is that Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act actually said that employers did not have to provide insurance if the employee worked 30 hours or less. So those individuals actually lost work. They were cut to 30 hours. They don't have sick leave. And so that was why I voted for and have voted for appropriation and reauthorizing every year the Arkansas Works so that those folks are taken care of. As far as having necessary PPE in our hospitals, it has been there. We haven't missed a step in making sure that hospitals have that. And so I just have to commend Governor Hutchinson. I know that there's been a lot of pushback about the mask mandate, but we're following the science at Arkansas. And I think both Republicans and Democrats are working together and making sure that business is being brought back, that we're opening up, and that we've actually been able to recover very well from the economic downturn that many other states have been hit hard by. And now we just need to pray for those who are still being afflicted and continue to make sure that they have the support that they need.
Well, I think the problem that continues, and I don't know how you solve it, really is medical facility capacity. I mean, obviously you can't build hospitals overnight. You can't add on a ICU wing overnight, but that's going to be a continuing challenge until this thing subsides. Let me switch gears a little bit, leading us into a closing. Most likely, let's see, Hutchins, yeah, the most likely Arkansas will remain a Republican, will have a Republican governor. And now I'm making a prediction now. I have no inside information, but that's my guess. And let's go by, I'll start with you first, Mr. Lowery, on some party distinction of what is it going to mean for the Republican Party to continue to have the dominance in the House and Senate and at the governor and cabinet level, most likely. What are the distinctions that the Republican Party brings to the mix of government that serves the people well? And Ms. Applegate, I'm going to ask you the same question.
Well, I think one significant distinction that I would want to point out is that we do not have the same vitriolic relationships between, at least in the legislature, between Republicans and Democrats. Now, having said that, I think Republican leadership is going to bring to us a stronger emphasis on economic development, of attracting industry to the state of Arkansas, which we have done. We have one of the lowest unemployment rates in the state of Arkansas. We've been bringing industry into Arkansas, but the challenges still exist. And this is, again, where bipartisan work is happening in terms of education. We are only going to be able to attract more and more industry as our educational system improves. And that includes workforce education. So we've been making this shift back. There was a period of time where we had de-emphasized vocational training. We are now bringing back workforce training. And that is something, again, that I think is a significant interest of Republican legislators, of recognizing that we need to not only educate K-12, but we need to make our students career ready, whether they decide to go to college or whether they want to go into a career. And so we are doing more of that. We're preparing our students. We want to make sure that when they get to college, that they are not having to be remediated, so they are actually prepared when they get to college and they're able to hit the ground running, able to earn a living. And we want to make Arkansas a fertile ground for them to stay here. We don't want to have brain drain and have our best and brightest leaving the state of Arkansas. So I think economic development is one of the main issues where Republicans are stronger in being able to drive down the unemployment rate, being able to increase wages, being able to give income tax cuts. Democrats typically don't want those income tax cuts because they actually want more money for government spending. And we think that money is better left in the pockets of Arkansans.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lowery. Ms. Applegate, same question. I'm trying to help the viewers understand what distinctions does the Democratic Party and your platform bring to the mix of government that will benefit the people?
Neal, I think number one, Democrats want to be the party that represents and advocates for as many people as possible, not just those who have political ties, not just those of the big corporate interests and insurance companies. Our state ranks pretty low in the barrel on a lot of different things. We're 43rd in our economy, 49 in healthcare, we're 42nd in education, we're 47th in crime. These are all statistics that have occurred under Republican leadership. And as part of the Democratic Party, we want to improve those things. We want to provide more economic opportunities for all, including things like paid family leave and implementing additional universal pre-K programs to set that standard for education that's going to provide the success that students need later on in life in order to achieve success. That then ties into our economic system, because if we don't have students who are being educated well, then they're not competitive in the job market. They're not getting these good quality, high paying jobs. And that then feeds into our crime issue. You know, we've got a real serious problem with violent crime in the state of Arkansas. And it's a systemic problem that relates to our lack of good quality, equitable education, as well as a good, strong economic system and a lack of resources for healthcare. Until we solve those issues, we're going to continue to rank in the bottom, among other states in the country. And so that's what we want to do, is improve on those issues in order to make Arkansas work for as many people as possible.
All right. Let's move into our closing remarks. Mr. Lowery, if you want to use part of your closing to respond to anything Ms. Applegate said, you're welcome to do that. Ms. Applegate, I will let Mr. Lowery go first, and if you choose to use part of your closing to respond to anything he said, please do that. I think I'm tired of this collegial campaign. Let's take those gloves off. No, I'm just kidding. No, you guys are doing great, and I think it's a shame because of this virus that there's not more forums like this where you can actually be with people and talk and visit. I know that's, if I were a politician, I'd want to be amongst the people.
Absolutely.
Some do that to a fault, even though there's a disease, but neither here nor there. Mr. Lowery, final 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Neal. And thank you, Lions Club and Ms. Applegate, for joining us here tonight. You know, one of the things that I would point out is that Arkansas is low in a lot of very significant statistics, but to lay it at the feet of Republican leadership really is off target, because the Republicans have only been the majority party in Arkansas for 5 years. The previous 150 or so years of Arkansas were under Democratic rule. We have had very few Republican governors in that period. There was Frank White, there was Mike Huckabee, and now Asa Hutchinson. So, you don't turn this ship around overnight. And I think we've done an amazing job in 5 years with a Republican majority. I was in the first majority in 2000, my first session, 2013. We're now a super majority, and I think we're making great gains. We've not had the long drawn out economic downturn that many states have had. Yes, there are issues in terms of making sure that everyone has access to healthcare, but that's because we're a rural state. And so one of the things that we've done is Republicans have initiated telehealth, where rural folks in rural hospitals, rural practitioners can use that to be able to bring the best healthcare possible. We've authorized nurse practitioners to be able to practice in the state of Arkansas. All of these are initiatives brought under a Republican administration. And so I just hope that the people of Maumelle and District 39 will give me an opportunity to continue to serve you. I have been so privileged to represent this district, and I hope that you will give me another 2 years to serve in my seniority position in the legislature, and to bring leadership not only to the Arkansas House, but bring leadership to the state of Arkansas. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lowery. Ms. Applegate.
Thank you. During the past 13 months since I announced my candidacy, I've heard a very consistent concern. For far too long, so many of you have felt unheard and unrepresented, and you're downright sick and tired of partisanship and not getting anything accomplished that's really going to move the ball down the field in your lives. Now, you've heard some of my plan tonight. I encourage you to go to my website to learn a little bit more, or reach out to me by email. I'm happy to discuss it further, because obviously we've got limited time on being able to discuss, any details of our plans. But one thing that I'm going to do is ensure that we fight for tax cuts for those who need it most, not just those who need it most, or not just the top 1% who largely got the most recent tax cuts from 2019 legislation. I will advocate for more economic opportunities for our Kansans, like paid family leave and universal pre-K. I will advocate for higher paying, more quality jobs through the development of infrastructure like broadband access. In Arkansas, we do not have a broadband access bill that has ever been proposed, and we rank 50th in the country for broadband access across the state. I will advocate for improving our public education system to make it more equitable. And I will advocate to make sure that we have as many of our Arkansans on healthcare as possible. Over 240,000 people still lacking insurance is just simply not acceptable. And part of the problem was that the Arkansas works requirement kicked 18,000 people off of insurance, many who would have qualified, but they didn't know about the work reporting requirement that had been implemented. And that's an administration failure. That's something that could have been prevented and wasn't. District 39, you deserve to have someone who is going to listen to you and who's going to fight for you. I've spent my career doing just that. I've represented women in abusive relationships, fought for fathers' custody rights, protected children in custody situations. I've stood up for small businesses in litigation, and I've held greedy corporations and insurance companies accountable. Many of my family and friends are Republicans who have supported me during this campaign. And that's something that I am so proud of. Because if you're a Republican, you're just as much my friend, you're just as much my neighbor, and I'm going to represent your interest in the same way that I represent the interests of those who support me and who voted for me. Because at the end of the day, we're all Arkansans, and we're all in this together. So when one of us succeeds, hopefully all of us can succeed. So tonight I am asking for your vote so that I can fight for you as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Applegate. Thank you, Mr. Lowery. One thing I want to say, thank you both for running, for serving. I think there's great nobility in serving your state, either, in a paid position or non-paid position. The legislature requires many hours. I want to thank those running for Maumelle City Council. It takes a lot of time. I think you end up making like 50 cents an hour by the time it's all over. So I think all the candidates, I know Ms. Applegate and Mr. Lowery both have Facebook pages that will lead, there's a link there to their websites if you want to get more information on both of them. So that concludes our candidate forum, brought to you by the Maumelle Lions Club. I want to thank Julia Everett for her help in putting this all together, and all the other little fairies and wizards behind the scene. I hope you've gained important information that will guide you toward choosing your candidate. This program is being recorded, so it will be there and be available on the Maumelle Lions Club Facebook and YouTube page for later viewing. So by all means, get out and vote. Early voting will be easy and simple in Maumelle, so get out there. So until then, I'll see you on the boulevard. Good night.